Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the year of being 70. We've been 70 now for over half a year, almost 9 months for me, coming up for you. Lucy is my childhood friend. Our mothers were friends, actually. Lucy lives in Norfolk in England, and I live in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And we keep reflecting on our life. And we have a question for you today. Um, do you do things alone by yourself? And how do you feel when you are by yourself? Do you love to go and have a coffee by yourself, or do you feel like conspicuous, like people are watching you? Oh, that poor person is on her own. How is that for you? We're curious, and I'm also really curious how that is for you, Lucy.
Yes, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think it's something I came to later in life. I don't remember doing, well, I married when I was 20, so I guess I went from being almost at home, and then to being a student, but still with a boyfriend, and then getting married. So for a long time, I was never alone. I always did, in
Yeah.
so I didn't even it didn't feel like a choice in a way. I mean, my first marriage, Rob and I did almost literally everything together because we worked together as well as, living together. So there was very little opportunity or thought about doing anything separately. And also because part of our job was reviewing, we'd started this theatre magazine, this performing arts magazine. So part of our job was to go to the theatre, to go to the cinema, to go to the opera, and review it. So our kind of, what might have been leisure activities for other people were actually, I mean, of course we enjoyed them as well, but they were work activities that we always did together because we would get two tickets, two free tickets to everything. So I mean, I guess, and then my that marriage ended when I was nearly 40, and so I'd really spent my first, well, my kind of between 20 and 40 really not doing anything on my own and not thinking there was any need to or possibility to. While you were in a completely, you were almost the opposite to me.
I was almost the opposite. Yes, I think I've always been a bit of a loner. Like I remember in my student days, which was very much like tribe time and seeing friends all the time, that I would go to the theater by myself and people would say, why did you go by yourself? Well, I wanted to see the play and everybody was kind of, I don't know, I just booked a ticket and I went. And and I also started traveling by myself. At the time, I had like a succession of boyfriends after I broke up my engagement. I broke up my engagement when I was 25, which was one of the best decisions of my life, also of his life, also, although because we didn't really fit, but took him by surprise. And yeah, so I lived on my own, first in The Hague and then in Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, first, I didn't know too many people, so I would go to the cinema by myself and not out to dinner. That is something I think I've only done when I'm abroad. But then I feel fine. But also I started, yeah, to travel. I went to India, I went to Sri Lanka. I, yeah, and I really enjoy doing things by myself. I don't feel I need another person there necessarily to, and my mother would say, but then you can't talk about it. She was born in 1928. My father was born in 1925. And in their marriage, my father was, when he had a program, my mother could go to the cinema with a friend. That's basically how it was.
Yes.
So she did not understand my more loner mode.
No, I can imagine she was very confused by your behavior and that sort of thing. So yeah, so
Yeah.
I didn't I don't think I don't know that I thought about being, sort of on my own until after I had got divorced. I did get married again, but Richard and I have very much more different interests, so we do things separately. But also in my work now, I travel to, sort of do work things. So I travel on my own. Not It's not kind of holidays necessarily, but it's sort of sitting in a plane on your own, it's staying in a hotel on your own. It's and I love that, actually. I really enjoy not being responsible for anybody else. And yes, it's interesting that your mother said, but you can't talk about it. I love that. I love not having to talk about it, just to be able to enjoy things and think
Yeah.
about them. And it's probably only in I don't know, yes, in the last sort of 15, 10 years that I've started going to the cinema on my own sometimes. I don't do it very often, but or going to the theatre and thinking, yes, I don't have to have somebody else. I don't have to invite somebody to go with me to make it um, in order to make it exist, almost, to
Yeah.
make the experience something valid and shared. It's perfectly okay for me to just experience it in my head, in my, myself, and talk about it or not as I want to with other people afterwards. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
So in
being.
the time you mentioned your divorce, and in the time, because of course, many people nowadays get divorced, and then you have to kind of, I had this conversation with my personal trainer at the Basic Fit, where I do machines to keep up my strength. And she had just broken up with her boyfriend and I said, well, I'm in a bit of a hole. And it just happened the day before. And I said, well, you have to kind of reinvent your life and kind of reconnect with friends whom you have seen less of when you had this year of being with this man. And I think a lot of people do have to reinvent their lives from time to time in life events. And of course, at our ages also, we know women, but also men, of course, who've lost their partner
Yeah,
and have to kind of start, because it's also kind of easy to have this person who you do things with. I find
yes.
it very easy in that sense to have a partner.
Yes, yes. No, of course that makes it simple. You book two tickets, you do things, you agree you're going to do
Yeah.
something together. I mean, my mum was in her, I don't know, 67 or something when she was widowed, because my father was a lot older. And from my perspective, I'm not putting this, she's not saying this, but from my perspective, her next decade or so, I think was probably her most enjoyable decade. Not saying anything against my father, but he was quite difficult to get on holiday. He had, particular kind of needs, and she was able to do things on her own. I mean, she did a trek through Syria or something, when she was 70 for her 70th birthday, which is,
The year of being
I
70.
know. Well, it's certainly more than I'd be capable of. I mean, they walked, miles through the desert every
Yeah.
day, and that was brilliant. I mean, she made friends there, and friends that she still has, and she did all sorts of exciting things that she wouldn't have done, and reconnected and did things with friends. So yes, I think losing a partner. I mean, obviously, it's terribly sad and a whole life-changing event, but it can be the start of something new and different, and something positive for people if they look at it in that way. The one thing I've never done on my own, and you just said you had, is I have literally never lived on my own. I have never had my own house, flat. Um, a student room is the best I've had on my own, and that was
Yeah.
only for a year, and I
Yeah.
didn't spend a lot of time in it because I was actually more with the boyfriend. So I have
Yeah.
never, I've gone from home to husband to next husband and having children all the way through, and I still haven't got rid of my children, so I've still got two at home.
And so
So
in the divorce time, were your boys still young? So,
y-
or did you have a time when you had to kind of reinvent who am I when I don't have a partner, and who am I when I do things on my own? I mean, it's also like when you have a party, even with good friends, and you come in on your own after having been part of a pair, is I don't know. It can be uncomfortable.
It is. It is very discombobulating. You really, I mean, after having been part of a couple for 20 years, as I was, you really have to think about who you are again. You do have to kind of create a new identity for yourself. And so, yes, I mean, the boys were living at home, but they spent a week with me and a week with their father every, forever, for years. They did that. So I had weeks when I was on my own, and as you say, doing things, finding a rhythm, doing things with friends, or on my own that was completely new to me. So yes, I really did feel that there was a time where, my life was, I didn't really know who I was because of just myself, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. And how did you go about, finding who you are or filling or not filling those weeks when the house was empty and it was just you?
I mean I had I was working, of course, and as ever my kind of work colleagues were actually my kind of best friends as well. I mean, I was working with my friend Mike at the time, so we used to do a lot of things together and other friends. So it was a I don't think I had a plan. I just, filled in the time with different things, and gradually your boundaries of selfhood start to regrow and reform, and you kind of start to feel like, you own yourself again, I think. So yes,
And did
that's
you go out by yourself? Did you at that in that phase go to movies or
not so. I think I then sort of went with friends rather than, no, I don't think I did start going to movies then. The thing, I still feel, even now, there are certain places that I mean, that I feel very uncomfortable going into on my own. One of those is a pub. I don't know why, but I just feel extremely out of place. I mean, I never normally go to a pub anyway on my own.
and I think a
But
pub is the place to go and kind of chat with people
yeah,
who are also there. But it's an art. I have never mastered it. I don't drink alcohol, so for me, there's not much reason to go into a pub. But
no,
Jos, my husband, is really, he can go into a cafe and kind of sit and read the paper and get into a conversation about a newspaper article with somebody he doesn't know and have a good time. And he actually has deep friendships with men particularly, but not only, who he has met. When we lived in the city center, there was a pub around the corner. Actually, we're going there next Sunday because they have a little exhibition space and his work will be featured there. We haven't been there for a while. But yeah, no, going into a pub alone, yeah. Yeah, no. And
yes,
other places, more places where you feel uncomfortable going on your own?
I don't know. That's that's a
That's
particular
the one,
one for
yeah.
me. Other ones, I suppose, I don't often take myself out to dinner on my own. In fact, very rarely. Um, but it's interesting what you say about yours, because Richard is exactly the same. A pub is his kind of natural habitat. He doesn't need anybody else to go in with him. He is very happy just going in, chatting to people, making new friends, and having lots of friends who, they don't sort of decide to meet at the pub on a particular day. It's who's there, and it's and he can talk to anybody as well. And I think it's my inability to make sort of to have small talk. I'm very bad at, I feel anyway, at just chatting. I always need something to talk about, whether it's work or children or family or something. I kind of and I'm very bad at doing it in groups. I find myself
Yeah,
kind of
but I wonder about this. Let's stay there for a minute. I wonder if other people recognize this, that it being not able to kind of have a casual chat and I'm still learning. I'm still learning. Actually, yesterday, a woman, a terrific woman, kind of in her early 40s, came here. And because the weather is so hot and we have water here, I said, maybe you like to bring your swim gear when we go for a swim. So when we go for a swim, we go through these kind of floating houses that are here. And and I just saw how contactful she is. She immediately made contact with the children, knew their names. Then a woman came and she said, "Are you going in for a swim?" Well, this woman, I've lived here for 2 years. I've never spoken to her. And so I'm still kind of, oh, that is how you do it. Because I'm also not really good at talking about the weather, or I don't know, but people have really deep and interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I
I
also
find.
often need a topic.
Yeah, I mean, I find another time, sort of environment I find difficult socially is when I'm going to something like an awards dinner where you're put on a table with people. And I mean, I'm often with my business partner, for example, but it's not the place to talk to each other. It's the
No,
place to
no,
talk
this
to
is
other people
networking,
on the
right?
table. And I
Yeah.
always feel terribly sorry for the people who are sitting next to me because, they kind of, it takes a really particular kind of person to open me up and have an interesting conversation. Otherwise, I feel I'm terribly boring. And
Hmm.
I can't pursue, you can talk about the basic stuff like who you are and what you do and where you come from and, but if somebody is not good at kind of really kind of making contact and seeing, I suppose that's what it is. I don't feel seen, or perhaps I don't feel safe showing who I am to new
Hmm.
people very quickly. But I mean, a year or so ago,
Hmm.
I sat next to somebody on a table at an awards dinner, and I had the most amazing conversation. It was such a nice evening. He was such a lovely guy, and we just talked about stuff, really kind of personal stuff, and it was just very nice. And I, haven't seen him since. That's fine. But it was.
A
I feel it was
shooting star. Yeah.
yes, but I feel it was down to him, not down to me. I was responsive to his kind of ability to draw me out, while I'm not very good at doing that with other people, I don't think.
Yet we have been talking. This is our 36th episode, so we've been talking for 30 hours. And yeah, but I have a bit of a strategy. I often put things into the middle. I don't like round tables actually because you can't really reach the other side and the room is noisy and lots going on, waiters to and fro. So yeah, so you're kind of bound to left and right. And but I often ask people, what lights up your life? What is really important to you at this time? And that's, kind of a good question.
That's a very good question. Yes. I mean, my mum always said to me, occasionally when I was young, my father would take me to sort of city dinners instead of her. I mean, which was terrifying to me. But she always said, my trick is to always ask the other person a question about them.
Yeah,
Make them talk about themselves. If you're sitting next to some big,
yeah,
sort of scary man, ask him any kind of question, and he'll probably
yeah.
be delighted to talk about himself. So yes,
Yeah, yeah,
but I
yeah.
would
And
love
then
to ask.
sometimes I come into this position where a person talks about themselves at length, and I go
Yes,
like,
no,
"Oh, do you really think this is all very interesting to me?" But yeah, but I think we all have our bag of tricks, and there's people who are naturals.
yes. Oh,
Just
I mean, I
naturals.
really envy people who are naturals, as you
Yeah,
say, who can just talk to anybody, light on the right
yeah.
conversational subject. Yes, and no, I'd like to ask our listeners, what are your tips and tricks? Do you have a tip or a trick for me or for Lisette that I can, when I get into a position where I need to talk to someone and I'm feeling really kind of stuck and I don't know what to say, which literally happens quite often, and I just don't know what to say next. What's a clever thing to
Yeah.
do? What's a good way to get out of that situation? What's a question to
Yeah.
ask, or a subject to raise? So yes, anybody who's
Yeah. So what lights up your life? What is really
that's a
important
nice
to
one.
you
Yes,
now? How are you seeing what's happening around you? And then people say, "What's happening around me? What do you mean?" I say, "Well, what is happening around you?" I don't know. I've really learned to do that.
yes, that's nice. And yet, I feel that if somebody said directly to me as a conversational gambit, what lights up your life, I would go,
Well, the
I don't
podcast I
know.
have
What do
about a
you?
year of being 70. Are you 70, really? What
Yes.
do you talk
Well,
about in your podcast? Well, yeah,
yes,
no, but
no,
it
that's
is, I
true. I
mean,
will
when
remember
there
that
is
one.
like an innate shyness, it isn't so easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a question of sort of yes, I freeze when I feel the spotlight being turned on me in certain scenarios, and I kind of I think I'm kind of catapulted back to childhood where children should be seen and not heard. I mean, not that that was ever actually said to me, but it that sort of was, when we were in grown-up conversation, it was for me, it was about listening and watching and learning, and I did not want the adults to go, "And what do you think, Lucy?" Or, not that they ever did much, but I didn't
Yeah.
want that. I
But
didn't.
mentioning childhood, I think, the example I was given in childhood of how my parents' marriage was is not at all how I wanted it. And these days, Jos is much less sociable than I am. I'm much more out there. And, this afternoon I have a drinks party, but it's about steward ownership. So these are all people who are in that field of either being a startup and saying we want a company to be not owned by the shareholders, but owned by its mission, or people consulting or lawyers, whatever. So there's a topic there. It's easy. And I look forward to meeting those people because that topic is of interest to me. But yeah, Jos and I have kind of this agreement of we both, do what we feel we need to do. And he's very much, go for it if you feel you need. And then, of course, I kind of build in like evenings where I don't have anything to do because I need that rest, but also that we can be together. And
Yes.
yeah, so every week, every Sunday mostly, or somewhere during the weekend, we kind of sit with a diary and kind of talk about how is our week, and he will scribble in his diary all the things that I'm doing and go like, whoa, whoa. But also to parties. If there's parties by my, say, old friends, old student friends, I don't expect him to come along, and people sometimes go, oh, where is he? And he said, well, he has, and I don't say he has other things to do. It's just like, yeah, he needs more time or he doesn't particularly like the people, but I can't say that.
Yes,
But
exactly.
I am actually, I feel independent and strong when I go out on my own.
That's nice. Yes, yes. Yes, I mean, I wouldn't say I don't feel independent and strong. Yes, I do when I go and do things on my own and sort of, yes, I
There
do.
you go.
Definitely more than I used to, I think. But yeah, you were saying what are the other environments where I feel sort of not able to cope terribly well, and it's just really, I suppose a pub is just one example of it. It's rooms full of people, and I find lots of people quite intimidating. I'm not good at inserting myself into either conversations or going up and saying to someone, "Hi, I'm Lucy. I do this. What do you do?" I'm just really find that very difficult, and I don't really know why.
Hmm.
Perhaps I should take a leaf out of your book and just practice more and just actually do it.
Just more and go out to people. The other day we were at there's an artist friend of Jos who wants to publish a book about his life work, his oeuvre. And so he thought, let's do a fundraise with small kind of statues that he's made, and he was selling them, for an amount of money that you go like, okay, let's buy one. And there was this guy by himself, and he had on really an interesting kind of variation on a Bermuda. It was, and so I went up to him and I said, I'm really enjoying looking at your pants. And he said, oh, I just got them. This is the first time I wear them. And so we got to talk about where he got them, he had just been in Paris. And so Jos is going to Paris next week to see a friend. So Jos came, and so I don't know. I have these tricks, but it's also, I think, what I've always cultivated and what my most precious uh, what do you say, characteristic is curiosity.
Yeah, yes. No, that's very true. And that that will come through to people that there's a genuine interest from
Yeah,
you when you go and ask them a question or make a statement like that or something. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. I suppose a place where feel happily comfortable on my own now is at home. I mean, I know that sounds bizarre, but but I suppose
Well, I'm happy to hear it, Lucy. But tell me about it. Tell us about it.
I know. I suppose what I mean is that if everybody goes out, or everybody's in different rooms or whatever, I don't feel I'm more than happy to be on my own, do my own thing for an evening, watch my own TV programs, do some work, whatever it is. Whereas I think earlier in my life, I might have felt that I needed a kind of validation by other people just being in the room with me, that I had company, I suppose. And not, I mean, we have this phrase in English called, and it's sort of like, it's Billy no mates. So, somebody you will, it's a kind of, it's a jokey kind of, oh, you've got no friends, have you? You're a Billy no mates. Or you might
What
say,
a terribly unkind thing to say or think about a person.
it is,
Because
it's
there
horrible.
are
Yeah.
people I have, when we talk about autistic people or people on the spectrum,
Mm.
they cannot make friends. It's very
No,
difficult for them to make friends and then say, well, you're a Billy no mate. Oh my
I
goodness.
know. I mean,
Heartrending. But
yes,
so that kind of camera that when you are alone in a room in your house, there's kind of a camera, and that camera is saying, "Oh, you're a Billy no mate." Oh, so it's like an external judgment. Is that
yes.
it?
Yes, I suppose that is it. Yes, or just, or no, perhaps it is partially external, but it's also sort of internal. Like, I'm this experience is not worthwhile unless there are other people here to share it with me. It's not enough for me to simply be enjoying this or to be here on my own. I somehow need va external validation of my experience, I think.
Well, I have a comparable thing is because my life is kind of invisible to my siblings. There's a voice in me that counts my friends or that counts the people I've seen during a week. And then, so could present it to them when I needed to let
Yes,
the two of them know uh, that I also have a life that is full and that I am able to make friends and that I am able to connect with people. So this really is also this is an intimate confession. I really feel the vulnerability of this, of being a
yes,
person who is alone and who has no friends or yeah, yeah, that is terrible. But
yes.
this voice in me that kind of wants to be able to prove at any given moment that, yeah,
Yes, that you have a social circle, that you have
yeah.
that you're likable, that your experience, again, I think it's sort of, your experiences are validated by being with other people. That no, that's really interesting
But
because
on my 50th birthday, you may have spoken about that when I had my dinner with men only.
yeah,
My brother got up at some point, and we were not in very good relationship at the time. And he got up and he said something, I'm paraphrasing. It was a bit longer. It wasn't very long. He said, "Usually, I think you just drive me crazy, and I want to kind of what we in Dutch we say glue you behind the wallpaper." Um, but then I come here, and there's really interesting men around this table who have accomplished things in life and are even, quite well known. And so that surprises me. So that
yes,
was his compliment to me. But so this is 20 years ago that he said this, almost 21 years ago. I remember it very well. And so I'm still kind of maybe proving to him, maybe it's not even my siblings, maybe it is, look, the eldest daughter effect, still proving that I'm also a worthwhile person now that my brother has come in, who makes friends easily and has lots of friends and is a very sociable person. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Wow.
that's sort
Still
of,
the little girl there, right?
yeah, yes, but that is kind of insulting in a way. I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on your brother or your
No, it wasn't. It
response
was,
to what he said, but I'm only impressed by you because you know interesting, successful men. I mean, that's my entire reason now for thinking that you're a worthwhile person, not because of who you are, but because,
oh,
oh, you've got
maybe,
this
I don't
guest.
know if he said it like this, but
No,
he
I'm
did
sure he
say
didn't,
that,
but
it came to him as a huge surprise that he
yeah,
wasn't sitting amongst, dull vegetarians, so to say. Although, why would vegetarians be dull? But yeah,
yes,
it's,
but I can
is,
see
it,
why you're
yeah.
kind of why you continue trying to prove that point to him, if you like, that yes, I do know interesting people and they are successful in your world as well, and you're impressed
Yeah.
by them too. It's
But
yeah,
to be even more honest, I don't speak to him so often, but I do catch myself mentioning that I was with a friend somewhere or that we went to the theater with another couple. I do. So so you have this camera with the harsh, and I have, to me, that's personified in someone.
yeah.
And so I feel we've touched into something really, tender.
Yeah, yes, yes. No, it runs very deep, doesn't it? This sort
Yeah.
of I mean, I'm not sure if this is completely relevant. I went on a Zoom call a couple of days ago. It was a sort of pre-call to another call we were going to have, and there was supposed to be, as it happens, three men and me on it, our team before a call. And I was on the Zoom call, and one other person came on it, and I instinctively said, "Oh, sorry, it's only me at the moment." And he said, "Lucy, don't apologize for it just being you. That's the loveliest thing." And I was like, "Oh, I genuinely think that, I usually think that I am boring and not interesting, and that on the whole, nobody is going to want to sit and have a conversation with me. So I'm sorry there's nobody more interesting here to talk to you." And I know that sounds really
I
silly.
wonder if people recognize this because it's really not a kind self-image to have, of course. Yeah.
No,
Wow.
no, and I think for me, if I'm honest, it comes from my father who never said I was boring, but I found it very difficult to talk to him. He was a very quiet person, very introverted. I don't think he knew how to talk to either children or women. So, I didn't kind of win out on that one. So it's always occasionally he would be inconsistent and have a very chatty day, and that would be lovely. But mostly he was difficult to talk to. So I always felt that was my fault. And I wasn't interesting enough, and I didn't know what to say to him. And he and my brothers all went to the same school, and there were kind of, I don't think they necessarily found him easy to talk to, but there was much more sort of shared experience there, and
Yeah,
they were
much
all,
more overlap to be chummy and chatty about it.
yes, yes,
To kind of
exactly.
have, yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
but I think I was really, really shy as a child, and I have made a conscious effort. Not that I think I'm so super interesting, but I do feel I have gained at age 70 experience, and I'm interested in people and in what they do and how they think about the world and how they read the current world situation and what they do about it. And yeah, there's this phrase to be a happening person, right? And I find myself, to my surprise, it's not only my brother's surprise, it's also my own surprise. Sometimes, I was at a dinner for the university where I studied in Leiden, and so they were auction. There was this auction, and the auction needs to get started. Or when I'm at a presentation, I make a point of sitting on the front row because many people don't, and then that front row is empty, and it's not easy for the person speaking to make contact. Also, I pay attention when I'm in the front row. When I'm in the back row, I don't pay attention. I drift off. I go to my phone. And so, and then I often go like, well, I asked the first question. It doesn't matter at all what your question is because people
No,
are so relieved that there is a first question
you're
that you
right.
kind of breaking the ice. And I've taught myself to do those things, not because I think I'm, you know, I don't think I'm uninteresting, but I think I'm don't think I'm particularly interesting. But I see that as kind of roles in the field.
Yeah.
When you have a party, it's only nice if people make an effort. And so yeah, so I aim to do that. And
Yes, no, you're right. I mean, I have got better at all this than I used to be, but I think I think I probably could
yeah.
make more effort, but yeah, yeah, no, it is it's an interesting one. But yeah, I mean I mean my happy place really, as my brother pointed out the other day, when I had my book launch, and is I really enjoy being on stage and speaking. And
Hmm.
people say, but that how do you do that? Don't you get nervous? Things like that. And I don't get nervous about that at all. I can speak to tiny audiences or huge audiences, and I feel very comfortable and I don't feel boring then. I feel I've got something interesting to say, and the response is usually lovely. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk that I was a bit slightly nervous about that one because it was a group of people who were they were very high powered, and I felt more all men as well, and I felt, sort of very, is this going to be okay? I gave a talk, it went down very well. And out of it came somebody who was there, put me in touch with a potential big partnership, which is really exciting. And it was, just because he'd heard me talk. So I must have something interesting to say somewhere.
You do. You do. I find that every week that you have interesting things to say. So, yeah, but I think also we all have our strengths and places where when we are better than others. And what I like is that we are still a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yes.
we're 70, it's done and dusted,
No.
and this is our bag of tricks, and this is what we do, or this is what we don't do. We're still learning, we're still developing, and watching other people and go like, oh, I could do that too. I could just try that out. Why not?
Yes, yes, exactly. And in a way, I feel my insecurities kind of keep me young in a way. I haven't kind of got to, oh, well, I'm 70. This is what I am. I've achieved this, that, or the other. I feel like, I'm still in, I mean, like your curiosity, my kind of slightly childlike mode of still kind of having to learn.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, that was an unexpected discussion. I didn't think
yeah.
we'd
Well,
necessarily go there.
yeah, it started with doing things on our own and how we do that, when we've done that, where we're comfortable, where we're not. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well,
Well,
there we go. So, yeah, please, anybody again who's got any tips or
yeah.
tricks to help us, or certainly to help me navigate difficult conversations, or places where I feel uncomfortable, like big parties or pubs, or starting conversations with people, I would love to hear your tips and suggestions in the comments.
Yeah, and I'd also love this thing of, women doing things on their own, and whether that is done in your culture, whether that's different from how you were raised and you've kind of had to master it, or whether you were raised by a very, people who kind of said, darling, you can do everything, go for it. All interesting to us.
Yeah, indeed.
Indeed. See you next week.
See you next week.